Alright, now I want to do my before and after test, changing out that wrong size pulley that's got the homemade sleeve in it. So you can see the belt is quite unhappy up there, fluttering like a son of a gun. Now, whether or not that's just the pulley or whether or not there's an issue with the belt, I'm not sure. Here's my sophisticated vibration measurement device. It's a lid to a plastic peanut butter jar with a little bit of water in it. And if I look at it with my eye just right so that the light above is reflecting on it, I can see it clear as day. Problem is I'm having trouble recreating that on the camera, so I can just see that it's kind of a fluttering in and out effect there. You just kind of see it there. So if that doesn't come out on camera, you'll just have to take my word for it. Well, what a bummer. The new bushing doesn't come with a key stock to go on the motor. I'm sure that's probably normal for it not to come with it. And I can't take the one out of the old one because the old one is actually a stepped one. I'm thinking maybe somebody had to even make that special so that it's a key stock wide enough to fit this size here, but it's ground down narrower to fit the motor. Now that's because this is a, what size did I say this was? 1 inch? So that's the size key stock that apparently is found on 1-inch motors, is that width at the top there. And then they modified it so that it would fit in the groove on the 7/8 shaft of my motor. So that's got the key stock size for a 7/8 shaft. So I've got to get a piece of key stock. I might even have some around here, but I don't have any time to dig it out now. So it's Memorial Day weekend, and we decided to take the kids out to a restaurant Sunday night for kind of an end of the summer treat. Alright, that's it for now. Alright, so I was going to modify one of these Woodruff keys on the grinder, or even 2 of them side by side to make up for the key stock, so I can get this going without having to run to the store. But it turns out that the 2 thicknesses of Woodruff keys, one's too sloppy and one's too tight. So the key stock that goes in here is a width between those two. So I decided, well, as long as I'm going to go through modifying it, I might as well take this one that's already been modified by somebody and just grind down the sides of the thicker part till it matches the thinner part, and then I will have my correct size key stock. Alright, so I removed the bulk of the material, which wasn't much, on the grinder, and now I'm just getting rid of the burr. It's a good fit on the pulley on one side, and it's a little, oh yeah, okay, see, it's a tiny bit proud on one area there. Let's see how it fits on the motor shaft. Okay, I've got the new bushing on, the modified key, and I've got the alignment still looks good, and I've got the belt tension pretty much set to what it was set before. So this is going to be the first part of the comparison test. We're going to look at how bad that belt flutters with this new pulley setup. That does look like an improvement over what it was doing before. Now, whether or not I happen to have the tension a little tighter on the belt, and that's why, I don't know. But let's look at the vibration on that little puddle of water. Well, to my eye, it looks the same. Feeling this, it does feel like there's less vibration. And there's definitely less vibration up top here on the gearbox. So I think it was an improvement. That's kind of a fluttering in and out effect there. You just kind of see it there. I know I had previously mentioned that I'd like to at some point maybe replace that leather belt, just because A, it's old, and B, it's the type that has the metal splice, and so that makes the tick 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 noise when it's going around. And just for the sake of being quieter, it would be nice to have a true glued spliced belt. And there's even a place in the city that I think still makes those type of belts. And then one of my more avid viewers on YouTube that tends to leave comments with links to the places, he left a link for a gentleman that apparently specializes in making leather belts for this old equipment. So, you know, maybe at some point I will visit that. We'll revisit replacing that belt. But the problem is to put the new belt on, because it's a continuous belt, would require removing the spindle on the lathe. And I just went through all that trouble putting it all together. And right now, this old belt that's on here actually seems to be working okay. I haven't done any turning on this yet, so I haven't made it work hard. But point is that for now I think it's okay. So I'm just cleaning up this cover. This is the cover that covers the drive belt, the leather drive belt side. And that'll make it a little bit safer when I'm working around that area there. See if I can figure out exactly how this was done. This is kind of an interesting cover. I'm wondering if this was like somebody fabricated this. Well, obviously they did. This paint spray drips. So, you know, I could paint this and make it look prettier, but I guess that's kind of pointless considered I didn't bother painting the whole lathe, right? So, alright, see if I can get this on. I did take off the drum switch. I am going to reuse this drum switch. I know this drum switch is designed so I can go forward, reverse. I'm not going to bother wiring this because that's going to be much more involved as far as forward, reverse goes. And the way that they had this set up is they've got the screw in here, and basically if this screw is not screwed down or not in place, you can fire it up for reverse. So what they did was they had this screw in there which effectively locks you from accidentally putting this into reverse, so it'll only go forward. The reason why you don't want to, if you had just shut the lathe off and it was spinning down, or even sometimes from a stop, if you'd inadvertently hit reverse, the threaded on chuck could actually unspin suddenly from the spindle and come flying off and roll off, and you know, that's a lot of weight coming at you. So I kind of like the way this is set up. I think I'm going to do it that way. I don't know why this tape was on here. I can't see what it says, but it was covering the reverse off forward. And oddly enough, it looks like they... Oh, I see why they had the tape on there. Because they've got the forward locked out. I'm sure, you know, all it's a matter of changing the wires from one contact to the other. But I guess because it wasn't correct, they decided to just put tape over it. And this tape probably originally, before it got all filthy, probably said, you know, off forward. Or off on, whatever. Alright, well, I'm putting that guard on, the belt guard on, and realized that this bracket was missing. So I went and found it in my pile over there, and it was really filthy. So I just ran it through the parts cleaner, and I'll wipe it down and finish installing that bracket. I'll find some screws and stuff, because this was all you know, aftermarket. This isn't original to the lathe, so I think there's actually kind of a hodgepodge and mismatch of screws anyways in that thing. But I figure as long as I get the parts washer open, I'm gonna take care of the compound. I just went and got the compound from over there, and it's amazing. It's over there on the floor. I have it right next to the South Bend one. It's amazing how similar these two are. But the big difference right off the bat that I noticed was the handle. This has got this handle. It's just got a kind of like a bell crank almost type of handle, instead of a cross piece with a second handle sticking out over here. So I don't know how crazy I am about that. And then the other dead giveaway was I remembered when I took this lathe apart that it had this lantern style tool post on it with a carbide tip brace raised carbide tip cutter in it, so I know this is not the South Bend one. Alright, right into the parts cleaner with this sucker. Alright, so I just reinstalled that belt guard, and that's pretty much the way it was on there. They had drilled and tapped 2 holes down the bottom there on near the base of the headstock, and there's 2 screws in there, and then the whole thing just kind of floats except for a kind of a little cross bracket deal. I got this big L bracket bolted to the side of the motor base, and then this little cross bracket deal right here, which you can kind of adjust by moving it around and tightening it to get the alignment right. I had it in closer than this originally, and what was happening is that if it vibrated, it would shatter against this, so I moved it out, and that looks like about where it should be anyways. Looks almost vertical. But what perplexes me is this was left out extra long, and it's got a couple of mounting holes here, and I have no idea what these are for. I don't recall there being anything on that when I bought the lathe. I'll have to look at one of my earliest videos and see. Yeah, I shot a video. Did I shoot any video before we moved? I think the only video I shot at the guy's house was when we already had it loaded in the truck, so that was already off at that point. So I don't know what the intention was to have that there. I know that the drum switch mounts right here where these 2 holes go. Boy, that ballast is noisy. Alright, well, I cleaned up the compound here, and I think I'm going to take it apart because it's really, really tight. It could just be that the jibs are over tightened, but I'm thinking also there's probably rust on these dovetails, so if I take it all apart, clean it, lube it up, and put it back together, I'll be better off. The other thing I noticed is there's a lot of play in here. Okay, it's kind of hard to see this dial. Well, I'll probably give some serious consideration to making a new one of these dials at some point for this thing, because this is really hard to read. But alright, so that looks like maybe that, let's see, that's like 50 thousandths there to what is that? It's almost 75. So there's almost 25 thousandths play in there. But I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's a big gap opening up right here. So if this gap didn't exist, then like when I turn this here, it doesn't start turning that until that gap closes up. So I don't think that gap should even exist. There's a threaded hole right here for a set screw. Oh, okay, wait a minute, no. That's probably supposed to be a thumb screw that's supposed to go in here, and then the idea is that you loosen it and then you can adjust this collar to 0. That would make more sense. And it doesn't turn at all. And there are teeth marks all over this from somebody grabbing that with probably a pair of channel locks and wrenching on that thing. Yeah, that's a hell of a thing to do. How's that handle even held on there? Interesting. Well, just for the hell of it, let's loosen up these jib screws. That was already loose. That one was tight. This is either a screw broken off or a hole that's got no screw in it. And it's still tight. Hey, there's number 13. Another one of them number 13s. Of course, this has got the crashed lathe syndrome chunks taken out of the corner there. Indicative of a lathe that's been crashed. Alright. I think that if I take this large screw out right here, that'll allow the nut to be freed from the slide, and I think then the slide might slide right out. Did it happen? Well, sure enough. Well, it's moving separately now. So maybe... Alright, let's try this again. Let me put this back in. Move it over as far as I can. Then take it out. A lot of swarf trapped in there, I can see it. Ooh, and it's making some really crunchy noises now. This means I'm grinding some swarf into the lead screw. So let me take this out now. Oh, look at the crap in there. Yeah, that could be part of the problem. Get a load of that stuff. So, how does this end plate get taken out? That should not be in there. That plate. This might be a spanner nut, actually. Bet you it is. So I bet you unscrew this nut right here. You unscrew this nut here, and then slide this out to disassemble it, and then unscrew it from here. See, I can't unscrew it all the way from here now because this has got no place to go. It hits this part of the casting. But if I unscrew this, there's no hole on the other side, so it's not a pin. And it would make sense that that would be a nut that could be adjusted, because then what you could do is you could tighten or loosen it to take up this play as necessary. Alright. If I get a spanner that would fit that. That's the smallest one I've got. And it's too big. Oh, there we go. And like that, the play is gone. Alright, so that end play is completely removed now. But I'm going to go the other way and take it out completely, because I want to get this collar off and find out why that collar doesn't spin freely on that darn thing. That collar should be able to freewheel easily unless the set screw or thumb screw that's missing is tightened down. Yeah, I'm afraid of that. It only goes so far and then stops dead. Oh, that might do it. just stop dead right there. Plain as the nose on my face that the only way this is going to come out is through this way. So that's got to unscrew. But for some reason it's stopping dead right there. And even with that loosened up in this big gap in here, this collar does not want to spin. Alright, if I wrap this with a rag to give it some protection, maybe I could, dare I say, put a wrench on it. Alright, the squeamish of you should close your eyes. Oh, this is going to earn me a thumbs down on this episode, for sure. Actually, I'm not even putting that much force on it. It's just a matter of being able to grab it better. In fact, I wonder if I can just stand it up and do it this way. Nope. Shoot. But it is unscrewing. It just hasn't been off in a long time. Just a little bit of extra leverage that I'm able to get with this wrench is making all the difference. There we go. Ooh, almost hit my toes. But even if the handle could have come off this switch, which I didn't see how, unless it was just a press fit on there. Even if I could have gotten the handle off, it's impossible for this rod to go out in that direction. It hits the inside of this casting. Just trying to justify how wow. Hey, you know what? Get a load of how that's made. Got these two slots. So the key is what keys it to the handle, but what keeps the handle on the shaft? Must be just a press fit. That key's kind of funky too. The Woodruff kit's been modified. Hey, I'm glad I didn't sell the compound off the South Bend lathe yet. I might be able to take that handle and put it on here. Hell, I might even be able to use the dial if the dimensions work out. Alright, well now I can no longer grab the handle to turn this, so see all the teeth marks on there? That's from somebody doing this. Oh, now, well sure, now it's going to spin. And I don't want it to. So that That's how this is supposed to work. This is supposed to be able to turn freely until you tighten a set screw right here, which is missing in this particular case. That is not coming off though. There's a tooth mark on this shaft right here. I think somebody turned this shaft once with a wrench. Maybe not. Well, there's the problem right there. Damn nut. It's pushing up against it. Okay, get this nut back. There we go. Now, should have enough. The spanner, a spacer, the lead screw. I'm just going to gently tap this shaft to see whether or not this collar moves. Doesn't want to. Not sure how this collar is on here. Appears to be a bushing that it's on. Hey Steve, would you get the little arbor press? Well, it's coming up. Coming up in an upcoming flea market find series. Like doing an estate downsizing type of deal, and this is one of the items I picked up. Actually, this was a moving sale, I think. Oh, it's going to drop out. Need a third hand here. What I need is I need this to be bolted down to the bench, but I'm not doing that just yet. There she is, all her glory. Clearly that's some sort of a collar that's supposed to spin on, and that should spin on this very easily. And the reason why it doesn't is because now that I have it off, I can see down in that groove there's all little metal filings stuck in there. Crud in there. Alright. Well, I think I've done enough damage for tonight. Breaking the handle. I'll wash up and go on upstairs. Finish my beer, so. Oh well.